it sounds like Texas A&M fans weren't all that happy with the performance of Collin Klein. We're going to talk about it on today's episode of Locked On Aggies.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. On the show today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk a little bit about the offensive line and what do we need depth-wise there. The more you kind of look at who could come back, and obviously still decisions be made and stuff like that, but who could come back, you have a solid line there. So we're going to discuss what's going to happen in the future. We're going to talk about what Coach Elko and Marcel Reed and Terry York had to say in a recent press conference, but we're going to kick the show off talking about Collin Klein. And this has been a really interesting conversation I've seen. I mean, I'm not saying Collin Klein was great. I'm not saying Collin Klein was perfect because I don't think he was. There were times where I was frustrated with him, and there were times where I kind of scratched my head at the play call or a drive or a decision. There's no question. I think that's to be said about every coach every season, but a lot of Texas A&M fans in the comments here at Locked On Aggies on Twitter seem to want to move on from Collin Klein, and I don't know if I'm buying that quite yet. I mean, the offense, it was elite. No, it was middle of the pack in pretty much the SEC and college football. It was fine. It wasn't great. I think that there were I'm going to make some excuses for Collin Klein. And at some point, there shouldn't be any more excuses with Texas A&M football. It should be, darn it, let's just win, But, I mean, it's year one of a coaching staff for me. You had the whole debacle of Wigman getting hurt and Wigman not playing well, and then you having to switch to Marcel Reed. And I don't know if I understand the whole decision of, quarterback's going to be fluid throughout the rest of the year. Of course, they ended up going with Marcel Reed. Now, was that Collin Klein's decision or Mike Elko's decision? I don't know. I would assume Elko's based on the fact he's the head coach. But so there were some decisions and some things where I kind of went, okay, what are we doing here? But at the end of the day, for the most part, I was pretty happy with Collin Klein in the future he set. No, once again, I'm not saying it was great. It wasn't. But this is what frustrates me. And I want everybody to hear me out on this. And I want to hear y'all's thoughts. And if you disagree, I'd like to hear why. I feel like as fans, and it's part of what fans do. I do it. Everybody does it. I'm not saying I'm above it. I do it too. We all are too quick to judge things, I think, at times. And, it's kind of like I see Buzz Williams will lose a game, and everyone will say, fire Buzz, and then he'll win a game, and they'll be like, heck yeah, extend him, give him $1 million. It's like, pick. Decide. Don't change. Emotional tweeting, emotional YouTube commenting is some interesting stuff because it's just like a lot of it doesn't make any sense. And I see that with Collin Klein. If Collin Klein goes out against USC and Marcel Reed throws for 350 and rushes for 110 and you just look elite and you dominate USC, people are going to say, man, I think because this is a turning point for Collin Klein, he's the answer. Here we go. If he's bad, it's fire Collin Klein. It's just I don't think that's the way you run a program. You got to give people a chance to do something. You've got to give your staff a chance. If this season would have gone poorly, I think 8-4. I know, honestly, I think the kind of what you did toward the end of the year, you cannot call the season a failure, but you can call it a disappointment based off what happened at the tail end of the season. You had an opportunity to win 9-10 games, an opportunity to make an SEC championship game, an opportunity to make a comfortable playoff, and you kind of, peed your pants at the end there. And so you can call that a disappointment, but you can't call it a failure. But I wouldn't have been surprised if Elko went 7-5 this year, would people, or 6-6, people would have been like, fire him. That's enough. I've had enough of Mike Elko. Get rid of him. And I just don't think I don't think that is the answer for a fan base. I think you need to try and rally around your coaches in a positive way until you just can't anymore. And with Jimbo Fisher, we'd reached that point. It was fair to feel that way. 12 games under Collin Klein, I don't think it's the appropriate time to start saying, all right, that's it. Let's get rid of Collin Klein. Because once again, Collin Klein, we'll break down the numbers. We'll look at all of this. This will be more of a deeper offseason conversation. But I think that there's a lot to build off of. And I think that this offense is in a spot where you kind of go, man, this could be really special next year. You got your guys at receiver in Craver and Hudson. You got Thomas still. You got Bussey. You've got some great players at the wide receiver position now. Then let's just call a spade a spade. Your wide receiver room was not good last year. Your running back room was great, but it was banged up to where you're eventually down to Amari Daniels and EJ Smith, and that just wasn't the answer, especially in a big game against Texas. So, knowing that you're going to have a healthy running back room which more than likely should have the same, for the most part, players in it as this year, Le'Veon Moss and Reuben Owens, assuming everyone stays healthy and no one transfers, still to be seen there. But your offense is going to be really good. You have an offensive line back that was solid this year, and I think could take another step to another year of playing together. I think this offensive line could go from good to great next year. This offense, now, I would tell you this. This is what will be a deciding factor for me on Collin Klein. Will be the offseason development of Marcel Reed. Marcel Reed is going into year 3 of college football. He's no longer, I think after the USC game especially, you can't say, well, he hasn't played a lot of football. At that point, it would pretty much almost be a full season of football. You really can't do the whole, well, he hasn't played a lot. With Connor Wigman, it was like 2 or 3 games this year and 3 games the next year. Like it wasn't heading into this year, right? With Marcel Reed, it's now pretty much full season of football under his belt. You no longer have the whole, well, he's a young guy element. You got to develop him. We know what he can do with his legs. If Collin Klein, who hopefully is going to be a quarterback guru, he was a Heisman finalist himself, if he can find a way to develop Marcel Reed into a guy who's not only a dominant runner, but a great passer, not only is it great for him in his career, but this Texas A&M offense is going to be elite next season with what you now have at receiver, what you have still at running back, your improvements on offensive line, your improvements at the tight end position. You've already brought in one via the portal. It's going to be a real great season next year if Marcel Reed's able to develop. And that will all be thanks to Collin Klein. So, that's kind of what I want to see this offseason. That will be the prove it kind of factor there. If Collin Klein develops Marcel Reed and this offense continues to get better, and in year 2 things just continue to improve, it's going to be hard to not be fired up about Collin Klein as a coach. So, and the other thing I've seen folks in my YouTube comments, I've seen folks on Twitter, I think it was like Wisconsin, some other schools saying, do you think Collin Klein, people want Collin Klein. I really don't. And what you're entitled to your own opinion. That is what this country is based off of and built off of. But I don't understand folks wanting to move on from Collin Klein so quick. I just don't get it. I think that there's a bright future there. He's a young coach, a young up-and-coming coach who I think is going to be a star in the industry. I think we'll be on the wrong side of Collin Klein's story if you move on from him and say, well, he was fine in his first year, but he wasn't great. We've had enough of him. I just think you're going to be on the wrong side of his story, and you don't want for that to be the case for this program. So leave in the YouTube comments if y'all really don't want Collin Klein to be the future of this program. If you don't want Collin Klein to be the future OC here, Give me a good reason why I'm the YouTube coach. Don't just say, get rid of them. I've had enough. Give me a reason. I want to hear y'all's thoughts. So please leave that in the YouTube comments. We're going to talk about the quotes from Coach Elko and York and Reed at a recent press conference. We'll talk about that and what they had to say ahead of this bowl game, talk about the portal, college football in general, coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. It's that time of year. The college football playoff is back, and with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports coverage of the college football playoff begins December 21st, starting with the college football playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern, leading into our first matchup, the SMU Mustangs battling the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. Then the Clemson Tigers look to upset the Texas Longhorns, which we'll all be rooting for here at Locked On Aggies, in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the college football playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. So, what the coaching staff and players had to say about the upcoming bowl game, different things here. We'll start with what Marcel Reed was saying. So Marcel Reed talked about having his debut last year in the Texas Bowl. I think I've grown a lot. That game boosted my confidence and helped me get through the year. From then to now, I've grown tremendously as a football player and a leader. You know, one thing I really took away from a lot of these quotes, and it's something that I think that we're going to see become more of a theme, is I think Marcel Reed will be one of your captains next year. He seems to be a real good leader. Now, one just football thing you need your quarterback to be a leader on your team. That's just a reality. If your quarterback is not a leader, it's not good. I mean, it's the most important player on the team, the most important player on the field. And if he's not a leader and a voice of reason, a voice of right, then, I mean, it's not good for your program. And the thing about being a leader is there's different types of leaders. There's silent leaders. I mean, anybody that's played a sport, been in a locker room, it's not always the rah-rah loud guy that's a great leader. There's the lead by example people that are great leaders. And so I don't know what type of leader Marcel Reed is, but you know, to me, he seems, I don't know, he just seems kind of like a quiet guy. And I could be wrong. About that. Y'all, if y'all met him, let me know. But I'm sure we'll find out at SEC. I'll find out at SEC Media Days next year in Atlanta. But because I assume he'll be there. But you know, that's the type of vibe I get. But regardless, he's a leader, and that's great. Marcel Reed, it is to say about the transfer portal visitors. As a player, they have us host and give the player the vibes. It will what it'll be like if they come here. You turn into a coach for a day. You have a job. You are trying to get them here. It's pretty cool to meet other guys, convince them to come here. I do find that funny. I think that'd be really enjoyable, like to host players, transport players, and like, hey, you're coming from LSU, you're coming from Florida, you're coming from Boise State, wherever. Yeah, you know, we want you here, and here's why. I think that'd be fun, kind of sell your school. Here's what Marcel Reed had to say about the quarterback room, and this is interesting. I like this a lot. It talks more about the leader stuff. It's talking about on this quarterback room. It's a new room. I am the leader of it now. That is a new role, and I have to take accountability. I have to be a pillar they can lean on. That right there tells you all you need to know about Marcel Reed. I mean, he's going to help. I mean, it's funny because I talked about, hey, you bring in Zeno, the new quarterback, right? And you think, well, he's going to kind of be a leader. He's the older guy. No, this is Marcel Reed's room, and he's going to lead. And I really respect that. I like that. I've gained a lot of respect from Marcel Reed listening to this press conference from what he had to say about being a leader and his new role as a leader on this team. And I really respected that. Here's what York had to say about the bowl. We need this win. We lost our last 3 SEC games. We want to go out with a bang next Friday and set us up for the next 8 months to come. I mean, I agree. The bowl game, it's kind of funny because we're kind of sitting here going, man, I wish we'd been playing in the SEC championship game. I wish we'd been playing right now in the playoff. It's all true. We all wish that. But at the end of the day, I really respect what York had to say there about this ball game and why it's important, because it's important to the fans. I mean, we want to win this game. I want to win this game. I don't want to lose this game to USC. You don't want to throw these games away and pretend, who cares? We don't care. We're not in the playoff. There's teams that do that and programs that do that, and we all know who they are. And you don't want to be that program. Go play well in this game that you should win and take down USC and leave a good taste in your mouth ahead of next year. I mean, there's a lot of positives you can do. You're going to see young guys in there. You're going to see Marcel Reed looking to boost some stats, some receivers, and that's what you want to see in this game. So I'm anxious to see how that works out. Here's Marcel Reed on his recruiting pitch to said portal players we talked about. I would start with Kyle Field. Who wouldn't want to play here? You dream about playing in a great atmosphere, and we have the best in the country. Then the relationships that are here at A&M. Finally, Coach Elko, he never tells a lie to you. He's straightforward. I found that really interesting. It's fun to hear about like the pitch that these players and coaching staff are giving to the transfer portal players. Is very interesting. Terry York had this to say about Scooby Williams returning. Scooby has a nose for the ball and finds the ball. I love Scooby Williams. It's cool to see those two guys who are brothers in a room fighting for each other and really tight like that. That's really cool to see. Terry York on some less experienced guys playing in the portal. It's time to show you can go play football. People want to play, and they may have had guys in front of them with more experience. We are really thin. It's December in college football, so it's time for guys to show up and play. This is what bowl games are now. It's funny. My dad and I were actually talking about this the other day. I mean, whether you like it, whether you don't, bowl games are not what they once were. It's not complete teams. This game's changing, but it does give an opportunity for some young players to try and do some good stuff and build a future in a program, and that's the fun of it. So we're going to see some young Texas A&M players get some snaps against USC, which hopefully should, and that's what's great about it. Oh, man, this guy played well. One of the young linebackers played well. One of the young offensive linemen played well, whatever it is. And you go, the future's bright there. They're going to be really good. That's what we like to see in these bowl games. Coach Elko had this was kind of one of his earlier statements. Obviously, this is less than ideal to be going through what we're going through right now roster-wise with games coming up down the stretch. I don't have a great solution other than at some point we'll have to figure out some kind of centralized leadership for college football because this is getting out of hand. I agree with Coach Elko on that. Shamar Turner, Shamar Stewart, Nick Scourton, it's pretty well known that they won't be playing in the bowl game. I don't anticipate any others. Coach Elko said this is what he had to say about why so many of his players did choose to play in the bowl game. It probably speaks to culture. For some of our seniors, there's a chance for them to go and have a big game against USC. It's an individual basis. Our kids trust in the culture here. They trust in the coaches. They trust in what what we're saying. So the whole should you play in these games, should you not? That's not a debate for me to have. I'm not going to sit here and bash those players that like Coach Elko named. I respect their decision. They're about to make millions. There's no reason to tear an ACL in this game and risk your future, your family's future. I understand it. Some might hate it, but at the end of the day, it's business and money, and that's the reality. I know a lot of you already disagree with that, and that's fair, but you got to think about these kids and their future sometimes too. Coach Elko said, when you go to a bowl game, location and venue matter. Going to Las Vegas and playing in the Raider Stadium, that's a cool opportunity. Matchups matter. Playing USC, it's a really cool opportunity. It's really cool. It's a really cool game. We're excited to go out there and play. Coach Elko said, game planning for the bowl game. Bowl games now are going to start to play like openers. When you go into openers, you play a lot of general gauge and what you're looking at, but you have to go into openers ready to adapt. You're going in to have a plan and a baseline of what you think you need to do, but you're going to be really flexible. This is interesting. This is what Coach Elko had to say about Commissioner Sankey. Greg Sankey is a tremendous leader for the SEC, but whatever regulations he's putting in for the SEC, if someone can't make it uniform, that's putting the SEC at a disadvantage. It needs to be in national legislation. I agree with that there. So last quote here. What he had to say about Marcel Reed. It's a good opportunity for him to go step forward as QB1. Obviously, this was a tough year for the QB spot because there were a lot of ups and downs with how it played out. I agree with what Coach Elko is saying. This is an opportunity for Marcus Reed to prove, hey, you're the guy. Go do something special. Get the fan base excited for next season. We're going to talk about the offensive line, and we'll do that coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make everyone more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook of the NFL. Also want to tell you about our friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to $1,000 extra cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. I absolutely love the Prize Picks app. It's a ton of fun. It's a fun way to bet on sports. You take the over, you take the under. It's a really, really good time on a different prop, and I thoroughly enjoy it. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. But once again, that's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. So the offensive line, I think an interesting way to look at this is, you've got players like Zune and Basantis and Naboo and Reed Adams and Crownover. You can still see people hit the portal. It's not a done deal yet. But what my point is, you have an opportunity to put together a really good offensive line without having to do a lot in the portal. Now, I still think at offensive line, y'all know I'm a huge believer in competition. I think every position group needs competition. I think it really helps all over. I'm a big fan of it. Now, at the same time, offensive line is a position where I think it's even more important, because I look at the offensive line and I go, you are going to lose some players. You have 5 guys out there. You have 5 offensive linemen out there. It's a room where you need a lot of depth and you need a lot of great players. So I just think, and you have some there's some great players on this roster still, but I think that you need to go get some proven offensive linemen. I mean, go get someone better than one of these guys. We love these guys. We think they're great. We think that they're going to be good next year. We assume they're going to start next year, but go get somebody better. And you might say, well, Andrew, what do you mean? What I mean is that's what college football is nowadays. You always have to be trying to improve your roster. The offensive line was pretty good this year, but it wasn't great. Could you go get somebody to make this offensive line great? So despite having some solid players on this roster, despite having some good options at offensive line on this roster, I don't hate the idea of going to get some more players at that position and going to see how you can help and going to see how you can improve your offensive line. And that's kind of what I'm saying here. That's what I think you need to see happen in this position group. So if I'm the coaching staff, I believe in my guys. I believe in the future. I'm excited about what we've got going on when it comes to our offensive line. But at the same time, I would still try to go and, make it better and improve and fix the offensive line when it comes to taking it from here to here. That's what you're looking for. You want to make it better. That is going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Aggies. Thank you all so much for being here every single day. I really, really appreciate it. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Hit that like button. That helps the show a lot. If you're listening on a podcast platform, which once again, if you're listening on YouTube, you can find me anywhere you listen to a podcast. If you're listening on a podcast, you can find me on YouTube. But hit all the buttons, hit all the likes, all the shares, everything there helps me out a ton. Tell a friend. All of those things help the show a lot. Really appreciate y'all. And then leave in the YouTube comments y'all's thoughts on the Collin Klein debate. Is he the future? Does he need to go? What do y'all think? Leave that in the YouTube comments. Hope everyone has a great rest of their day today, and we will see y'all tomorrow, Friday, right here on Locked On Aggies.